सिद्धूरचे बॅकग्राऊंड स्टार्टेड विथ पहलगाम. हा जेव्हा पहलगामचा इशू झाला त्यानंतर भारताने ठरवलं होतं की ह्याचं आपण उत्तर देणार. त्यामुळे आपण त्यांचं कमांड कंट्रोल सेंटरवरती अटॅक केलं, ज्याच्यामुळे दे बिकम ब्लाइंड इन अ वे. पाकिस्तान इज अ नर्सरी ऑफ टेररिझम. खरं पाहिलं तर पाकिस्तानमध्ये अजिबातच ताकद नाही आहे. दिस इज द ओनली थिंग दे कॅन कीप डुईंग. MiG-21बद्दल बरेच मिसकन्सेप्शन आहेत. MiG-21 वॉज अ फ्रंटलाईन फायटर एअरक्राफ्ट. व्हॉट आय कॉल इट इज अ अनफॉरगिव्हिंग एअरक्राफ्ट. If you made mistake as a pilot, you must get out of it and you have to be experienced. If you are a rookie pilot, then
1971 बद्दलचं बोलायचं झालं तर तुम्ही दोन्ही फ्रंटवर खूप छान एक्झिक्यूट केलं ते ऑपरेशन.
I was in the very first formation. Our CO, Wing Commander Coelho, he was leading and I was number 4. And one never came back and then later we came to know that.
आता अनफॉर्च्युनेटली एअर इंडियाचं प्लेन क्रॅश झालं होतं अहमदाबादमध्ये.
What I frankly didn't like was that cryptic kind of initial report which has come out, which doesn't throw a light and it actually is increasing the number of misconceptions. General and then Field Marshal Manekshaw had come and सगळ्यांनी आम्ही we had coffee, tea, whatever it is in that typical NML mug असतात ना आर्मीच्या त्याच्यामध्ये. This particular one we were doing a formation in which the lead aircraft did something which was not part of the briefing. Our aircraft got too close and then he suddenly now tried to recover. So that's the time when we had our aircraft went out of control. And control got jammed, engine got flamed out. That's the time I saw this lake. We landed in that. Luckily for me, मला थोडेसे scratches झाले होते. And my wife was pregnant. I went to the squadron and I said that nobody will go home. Nobody will tell anything to my wife. I'll tell myself. China-Pakistan economic corridor आहे. We can overlook that from Siachen. Today Siachen has been open to the public. They can go to the base camp. They should go. They will understand as to how, what is the journey to go there. You go over the highest glacier when you cross from Leh to Thais and then further to base camp.
तुमचं फेवरेट फायटर जेट कुठलं आहे?
Good question.
नमस्कार, मी मीरा. देसीपॉडमध्ये तुमच्या सगळ्यांचं पुन्हा एकदा खूप स्वागत आहे. आमच्या देसीपॉडच्या पॉडकास्टमध्ये आम्ही नेहमीच वेगवेगळे विषय मांडण्याचा प्रयत्न करतो आणि आजचाही विषय तसा थोडासा वेगळाच आहे. आज आपण चर्चा करणार आहोत इंडियन एअरफोर्सबद्दल आणि त्यासाठी आम्ही आमच्या स्टुडिओमध्ये आज इन्व्हाइट केलं आहे एअर मार्शल भूषण गोखले सर यांना. एअर मार्शल गोखले हे एअरफोर्सचे वाईस चीफ होते आणि त्यांना परम विशिष्ट सेवा मेडल, अतिविशिष्ट सेवा मेडल आणि वायू सेवा मेडल यांनी गौरवण्यात आलं आहे. 1971मध्ये असू देत किंवा 81मधलं ऑपरेशन मेघदूत असू देत किंवा 84मध्ये झालेलं ऑपरेशन राजीव असू देत, ऑपरेशन पराक्रम असू देत किंवा ऑपरेशन सफेद सागर, या सगळ्या ऑपरेशनमध्ये त्यांची कुठल्या ना कुठल्या स्वरूपात इन्व्हॉल्वमेंट ही होतेच. आज सरांकडून आपण एअरफोर्सबद्दल वेगवेगळ्या विषयांवर चर्चा करणार आहोत. MiG-21 आता रिटायर होणार आहे. मग वायुसेनेमध्ये असलेले फायटर एअरक्राफ्ट यांचं काय फ्युचर असेल, ड्रोन टेकओव्हर करतील का, आणि असे अनेक टेक्निकल क्वेश्चन्स आपण आज त्यांना विचारणार आहोत. चला तर मग सुरुवात करूया आजच्या पॉडकास्टला. वेलकम टू देसीपॉड सर. सर, इंडियन एअरफोर्सबद्दल तुमच्याबरोबर मला खूप अशी छान चर्चा करायची आहे. कारण एअरफोर्स म्हटलं की भरपूर साऱ्या गोष्टी त्याच्यामध्ये येतात आणि तुम्ही खूप मोठ्या मोठ्या पदांवर काम केलं आहे. तुम्ही सगळे ऑलमोस्ट एअरक्राफ्ट आय थिंक तुम्ही फ्लाय केलेले आहेत, जेवढे आत्तापर्यंत इंडियन एअरफोर्समध्ये असतील ते. तर त्या सर्वांवर सर्व्हिस तर आपण चर्चा करूच यात, पण आत्ता रिसेंटली ऑपरेशन सिंदूर झालं होतं. तर त्याच्याबद्दल म्हणजे इट वॉज रिअली व्हेरी गुड ऑपरेशन. आपण खूप छान रित्या सक्सेसफुली ते प्लॅनिंग त्याचं खूप छान होतं, एक्झिक्युशन त्याचं खूप छान झालं. पण तरीसुद्धा इंटरनॅशनल प्लॅटफॉर्मवर त्याचं जे नरेशन होतं ते थोडंसं वेगळं होतं. तर असं का झालं? जो भारताला जो एक मेसेज द्यायचा होता तो जगापर्यंत पोहोचला का?
गुड. पहिल्यांदा सगळ्यांना नमस्कार. आणि इफ आय मे कॉल यू मीरा, देन फॉर यू ऑल्सो स्पेसिफिकली नमस्कार, कारण यू आर आर्मी बॅकग्राऊंड. सो नाईस टू हॅव यू क्वेश्चनिंग मी बिकॉज आय नो दॅट आय कांट गो अराउंड द बुश अराउंड काय. पण तर पहिलाच प्रश्न जो विचारला सिंदूरच्याबद्दल, आय थिंक व्हेरी good that we are starting this. As you know that Siddhur's background started with Pahalgam. And mind you, मला दरवेळेला एक खंत असते आणि ती बऱ्याचदा मी बोलून दाखवतो. इट्स आवर इंटेलिजन्स फेल्युअर. And it is not just India. It has happened to many countries. It has happened to Israel, which is supposed to be one of the best. Mossad म्हणतात, पण जेव्हा त्यांचं ऑक्टोबरमध्ये हमास केम अँड अटॅक देम सो मेनी अँड द थिंग इज स्टील कंटिन्युईंग. त्यामुळे वी हॅड पहलगाम अनफॉर्च्युनेटली. सो फर्स्टली लेट मी पे होमेज टू दोज पीपल हू डाईड देअर. अँड देन ऑफकोर्स आपण ठरवलं होतं की ह्याचा वचपा काढायचा. आणि काल आपण आय थिंक बिन ब्रेकिंग न्यूज की त्यातले जे होते मारेकरी त्यांना आपण मारलं. सो पण त्याचं सगळ्यात जो मुख्य जे आहे तिथलं ते आहे ॲक्च्युली पाकिस्तानमध्ये. आणि संबंध जगाला माहिती आहे पाकिस्तान इज अ नर्सरी ऑफ टेररिझम. म्हणजे संबंध वर्ल्डमधले कुठे कुठे काय काय जे झालं असेल ते इथून सर्व जन्माला येतं. आणि त्यामुळे तिथे टेररिस्ट कॅम्प्स आहेत, लोकांना माहिती आहेत. म्हणजे मला इव्हन माझा जो एक कलिग होता स्वित्झर्लंडचा, ही हॅड इवन मेन्शन दिस टू मी जेव्हा कायरोमध्ये डिफेन्स ॲडवायझर होतो एम्बसीमध्ये अँड वी यूज्ड टू इंटरॅक्ट. ही सेड त्यांनी चुकून आम्हाला एक दाखवला की इथे आम्ही ट्रेन करतो, मग त्यांनी कवर्ड अप वगैरे वगैरे अशा तऱ्हेचं. सो देर इज आणि दॅट फायदा लोकांनी घेतला त्याचा. जेव्हा रशियन्स आर ऑक्युपाईड अफगाणिस्तान, अमेरिकन्स यूज इट, दे गेव देम सो मेनी वेपन्स अँड देअर आफ्टर दीज वेपन्स कुठे गेली, काय झालं, काय कळलंच नाही. त्यामुळे जेव्हा कारगिल झालं तेव्हा त्यांनी ती स्टिंगर्स वापरली. अँड सो इज द केस नाव. आता जेव्हा अफगाणिस्तानमध्ये जेव्हा ते अमेरिकन्स विड्रॉ केले, ती सगळी ॲम्युनिशन सगळं काय राहिलेलं होतं दॅट इज ऑल्सो कमिंग टू पाकिस्तान, इज फ्रीली अवेलेबल. सो इट्स अ अनफॉर्च्युनेटली Pakistani people are suffering. त्यांची economy is in bad shape. They are not progressing at all. Other than jealousy of India, there is nothing. And even the Kashmiris have realized it. Kashmiris want peace and they are not interested in this continuously fighting and having some people lost their country. तर त्यामुळे हा जेव्हा पहलगामचा इश्यू झाला त्यानंतर भारताने ठरवलं होतं की ह्याचं आपण उत्तर देणार. जसं आपण आधीसुद्धा जेव्हा बालाकोटचं केलं किंवा त्याच्या आधी उरीच्या नंतर आपण जो आर्मीचा स्ट्राईक केला, पण प्रत्येक वेळेला आपण आधी मार खाल्ला आणि मग आपण उत्तर दिलं. नाव दॅट इज समथिंग विच मला त्याची खंत वाटते इन अ वे, बिकॉज देन इट्स इट्स अन ऑफेन्सिव्ह डिफेन्स काइंड ऑफ अ थिंग. यू आर नाव ट्राईंग टू मेक शुअर दॅट यू आर असं पुन्हा व्हायला नको वगैरे अशा तऱ्हेच्या गोष्टी. त्यामुळे आपण अजूनही कशी स्ट्रेंथन करू आपली इंटेलिजन्स. आणि आता देर आर मोर अँड मोर टेक्निक्स अवेलेबल. टेक्नॉलॉजी इज रिअली हॅपनिंग आणि मी त्याच्याबद्दल बोलतो आताच सिंदूरमध्ये त्याच्यामध्ये. पण दुसरं मुख्य सिंदूरचं आहे म्हणजे असं, आणि जे बालाकोटचं सुद्धा सुरुवातीचं जे अटॅक केला त्याच्यामध्ये सुद्धा मुख्य होतं असं की पाकिस्तान हॅज ऑलवेज बीन थ्रेटनिंग अस की टेररिझम नेक्स्ट इज वी आर न्यूक्लिअर. म्हणजे जसं काही मध्ये काही गॅपच नाही. So this we have now made sure that we have proved that there is a space to operate within. कारण त्यांना माहिती आहे की जर आपण नॉर्मल युद्ध केलं तर ते आपल्याला हारतील. 71मध्ये हारले, 65मध्ये हारले. 65मध्ये तर म्हणजे ते स्वतःला विक्टर समजतात, पण ॲक्च्युली आपण लाहोर आणि सियालकोटपासून 20 किलोमीटर होतो. त्यामुळे खरं पाहिलं तर पाकिस्तानमध्ये अजिबातच ताकद नाही आहे. पण this is the only thing they can keep doing is keep doing terrorism and like Musharraf said, have India bleed with 1,000 cuts. त्यामुळे ते करत राहतात. But we have found this gap of being able to do conventional strikes, make sure that not just the terrorist infrastructure, but also their airports, their airfields, their radars, there are so many things that we have destroyed in just 4 days.
Yes.
And what accuracy.
Right.
So there again our intelligence has come very well. So we have the capability. Now we need to do it for preemptingly throughout the surveillance, what is called. You see, there are two things in intelligence gathering. One is reconnaissance, but other is surveillance. Surveillance is continuous, 24/7. So you can't put your guard down because because there are also unfortunately some people from India who may help also in some this way. So in that kind of a thing, आपल्याला अजून गार्ड जास्त ठेवलं पाहिजे. वी शुड नॉट हॅव नो इन्फिल्ट्रेशन ॲट ऑल. आणि त्यामुळे सिंदूर जेव्हा झालं त्यावेळेला फर्स्ट ऑफकोर्स वी अटॅक देअर इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चर फॉर टेररिझम. मग जैशचं असेल, त्याच दोघांची आपण हे केली आणि त्यामुळे जी आपण टार्गेट्स चूज केली होती अँड ॲब्सोल्युटली ॲक्युरेटली त्याचे फोटोग्राफ्स आहेत, सॅटेलाईट फोटोग्राफ्स आहेत आणि त्यामुळे त्याच्यामध्ये असं कोणी म्हणू शकत नाही की नाही झालेलं पण. आणि जेव्हा त्यांनी ते ट्राय टू अप द अँटे, म्हणजे त्यांनी जेव्हा त्यांची स्वतःची आता ड्रोन्स पाठवायला सुरुवात केली, विमानं पाठवायचा प्रयत्न केला वगैरे, त्यावेळेला मात्र त्यांनी डिसाइडेड दॅट नाऊ वी मस्ट ऑल्सो अटॅक देअर इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चर अँड एअरफील्ड्स. त्यामुळे आपण त्यांचं कमांड कंट्रोल सेंटरवरती अटॅक केलं, ज्याच्यामुळे दे बिकम ब्लाइंड इन अ वे, बिकॉज दॅट्स द वे द वॉर शुड बी फॉट. द इनिशियल थिंग इज यू ब्लाइंड देम. So the radars are targeted, and then all the major airfields we took, Volari, whether it's Sargoda, all kind of things. So that has shaken them up, and they actually pleaded in a way. The DGMO from Pakistan called up our DGMO and said that, look, let's have a peace now or truce, because not a single evidence is available from Pakistan side to show where are the damage. They said S-400 in Adhampur has been destroyed. So we had our Prime Minister going next morning. He was addressing people in Adhampur, and at the back was the, in a way it was purposely done, I would say. At the background, the S-400 was there. So is the case. They said something about in Jamnagar it has happened, something in Bhuj it has happened. Everywhere, there's no damage at all. So we have been able to repulse their, attacks. Excellent air defense system we had developed meanwhile. What is called the ISCCS is been the backbone of this. It's a computerized fusing of the sensors. All radars, including the Army radars, the Navy radars, they all fuse together, including what we have on the airborne. They all fuse to give us a clear picture, and that is how the targets are engaged.
Yes.
We have layered defense.
Right.
We have the Army use their L-70s. Now they have been upgraded. So we had the guns. We had Shilkas, we had all, our own handheld weapons which are there. And similarly then came to Akash missile. We had the Barak missile, which is Israeli and Indian DRDO made. And then of course S-400, which has a huge range. S-400 looks right into Pakistan, and we shot down their AWC almost 300 kilometers. So we had one side the air defense very strong, and when we attacked with our aircraft, it was no contact war. We never crossed the border, because now today there is a standoff weapon capability of firing from 300, 400 kilometers. So we use weapons of that kind, whether it is BrahMos or whether it is Scalp missile or whether it is any other, and I think we had a fantastic success.
सर, भारताकडे काही इंडिजिनियस ड्रोन सिस्टम्स आहेत आणि मग त्या इंटरनॅशनल मार्केटमध्ये किती कॉम्पिटिटिव्ह आहेत?
नो, mind you, आपण DRDO कडनं ड्रोन्स बनवतो.
येस.
All sizes of drones we make. We are also making drones in collaboration with Israel and things like that. Initially, मी जेव्हा सर्व्हिसमध्ये होतो तेव्हा we had only Israeli kind of a Harop, Heron वगैरे अशा तऱ्हेचे. पण आता there is something called the Drone Corporation of India.
येस.
There are private players, and I'm told more than 1,500 companies are there. I myself know 2-3 of them. There is some in Talegaon. As you know, the very first one, these IIT 3 students, they made, and now today we have got internationally competitive way of. आम्ही एक एअरफोर्समध्ये मेहर बाबा यांच्या नावाने, मेहर बाबा म्हणून आमचं एक खूप Air Marshal, he's a very senior person, and he used to be very technology savvy. त्यांच्या नावाने आम्ही एक ट्रॉफी करतो, तर कॉम्पिटिशन असते आणि त्याची ड्रोनचीच कॉम्पिटिशन असते. सो त्याच्यामध्ये आम्ही असे प्रमोट करतो, ज्यांना असतो त्यांना फंडिंग देतो. त्यामुळे आज होतं यू फाईंड, आताच परवा एक तुम्ही ऐकलं असेल की बिट्स पिलानीच्या 2 मुलांनी ड्रोन बनवलं आहे, आणि दॅट्स सुसाईड म्हणजे ते करायचं म्हणजे म्हणतात ना त्याला, तर इट कॅन गो अँड अटॅक 300 kilometers almost. So there is I would call it urge amongst the youth also to make these kind of new technology, take advantage of artificial intelligence, robotics. So त्यामुळे मला वाटतं की as what would be outside are here, मला परवाच कॉल आला होता फ्रॉम समबडी सेइंग दॅट other countries want to collaborate. I don't want to take the names specifically, but there are countries which are wanting to collaborate with India on various technologies, and drones is one of them.
सर MiG-21 आता रिटायर होते आणि त्याच्यावर ना बऱ्यापैकी निगेटिव्ह कमेंटसुद्धा सोशल मीडियावर आणि बऱ्याच ठिकाणी आल्या, कारण बऱ्याच वेळेला ते MiG-21 क्रॅशसुद्धा झाले. पण निगेटिव्ह असंच नाही, 71मध्ये आपण बघितलं तर MiG-21ने काही उत्तम कामगिरी केली आहे आणि खूप इम्पॉर्टंट एअरक्राफ्ट ते होतं. तर त्याच्याबद्दल सर तुम्ही काही सांगाल का?
गुड क्वेश्चन. कारण MiG-21 बद्दल बरेच मिसकन्सेप्शन आहेत तुम्ही म्हणाला तसं. लेट मी जस्ट गिव्ह यू अ बॅकग्राऊंड. After 62, when 1962 it happened, immediately Americans wanted to help India. त्यामुळे आपले इंडियन पायलट्स बरेचसे अमेरिकेला गेले, and they flew F-86 Sabre aircraft. They're still around, and of course not flying, but they're retired. So then Americans said that we'll give you Sabre aircraft, F-86. Meanwhile, Pakistan, which was part of CENTO, they not only got Sabres, but they got F-104, which is Starfighter, which is a supersonic aircraft. Sabre is not. F-86 not supersonic. So we said, why this? I mean, if you're collaborating with us and you're giving them supersonic, so we would like to have also supersonic. But because of the pact, we were not part of any, we were non-aligned, and we remained non-aligned. They said, no, we can't give. With that backdrop, the Russians came and they said, we'll give you a supersonic aircraft, and not only give you, we can manufacture in India. So we not only got that time the Type 77 as the first model was called, and thereafter we got a number of different models, Type 96, the Biz, which still lately, which is there, and we had something like 900 MiG-21s. We had factory Ozar in Koraput for engines, and so much of, we used to do. But of course it was a CKD, it was an assembly basically. We are not designing aircraft, though we were modifying, we were putting, I would call it Western weapons on that. We were also doing some sort of GPS modifications and things like that. So it was getting as modern as it can. After all, it was a platform which was made in 50s. But that is how the airplanes at times do, because even Phantom had similarly a long life, but then they kept upgrading it. F-16 is a classic case. It's still being used, but it's almost 40-50-year-old. So you keep upgrading it. तसं MiG-21 सुद्धा upgrade चालू होतं. But what was also happening at the side by side is that while MiG-21 was a frontline fighter aircraft, what I call it was an unforgiving aircraft. If you made a mistake as a pilot, you must get out of it, and you have to be experienced. If you are a rookie pilot, तुम्ही जर under training pilot आहात and you're not really into it, then it can take you for a ride. It can sort of result into accident, and you should be quick enough to eject and get out. If you don't, then you lose lives, and of course one feels so sorry that we lost some aircraft. But the background what I'm getting at is, when we wanted advanced jet trainer,
Yes.
and our demand was for years. You see, we never had an advanced jet trainer. You see, since when I was in training, we flew the HT2, then we flew the Howard, and then we flew the Vampire. Vampire got outdated. There was Ishkara, got outdated. But thereafter, there was no stepping stone to the higher aircraft which are more performance, say like, Hunters or MiGs or whatever it is. So you require something called the advanced jet trainer. So the cadet or the pupil, he jumps from technology to technology, not straight away into something, tremendous change अशी technologyचा. त्यामुळे he can absorb properly the technology as well as experience. पण ती आमची demand was not being met basically because of budget constraints. It was almost 16 years. And meanwhile, HAL had promised that they'll make a IJT, what is called, intermediate jet trainer. They made 3 of them. But unfortunately, that never fructified into a regular manufacturing. तसं काय सुरू झालं नाही. So we were short. But what do we do? I mean, आमचं training कसं थांबवायचं? So now we changed our MiG-21 squadrons to training squadrons. Now, training squadron मध्ये, that is where our peak of accidents took place. where these young, as I said, they're young pilots who sometimes, because of various reasons of, because after all, once you're in the air, can be hydraulic emergency, it can be pneumatic, it can be some emergency happen. There are ways to come out of it and get back. But as I said, this was an unforgiving aircraft. I've flown Hunter also, I've flown some other aircraft. They're comparatively benign aircraft, in MiG-21 not. And one had to be very careful when you're flying it. Once you're experienced, you can throw it around, you can do wonders. I mean, I've flown that and it's a wonderful aircraft. It was actually one of the most popular aircraft those days, other than the Western sphere, right from, I would call it Libya, Algeria, down to, Vietnam. That I think, if I'm not mistaken, more than 30,000 aircraft have been made, MiG-21. So it is a wonderful platform, actually speaking, supersonic. And we used it in 71 war. Actually, a lot of people don't know, but on the final day, on the 14th of December, the 16th was the surrender. 14th, when we attacked the governor's palace, it was the MiG-21s which attacked under that time Vice Commander Bishnoi, who retired as a AVM and is no more now. AVM Bishnoi, he's called from Tezpur. They attacked that particular governor palace. Governor ran away and went into a 5-star hotel. And next day, surrender took place. They said, because they knew now that there is no way. So MiG-21 has played a tremendous role in the entire history of Air Force. So we are very fond of that platform. It is unfortunate that accidents also took place and it got a bit of a bad name. But I would really urge की हे जे misperception झालेला आहे, त्यांनी जितकी contribution केली, म्हणजे I used to work with Air Chief Marshal Tipnis, and George Fernandez was a defense minister. Both of them took it so ill when people made comments that it is a flying coffin and it is this, that and the other. They दोघं जाऊन ते मुद्दामून, George Fernandez flew in a trainer, Tipnis flew alone. And I was in Bareilly watching that happening, and we were wondering, I said, because at times you can have a bird hit, you can have anything. And chief ejecting, that is. So Dhanwa later became chief. He used to fly, Bhadoria used to fly. Idea is that highest body of the Air Force is flying with that confidence to tell you, look, there's nothing wrong with the aircraft. Because our technicians are good. Nobody sends a bad aircraft up. It's not allowed.
Yes, sir.
It's a criminal offense to send something which is unserviceable. So, there was nothing which was wrong when it went up, but it's just that, as I said, and you see, budgets are something which, if I can elaborate a bit, I remember speaking to the Singapore Air Force chief, and when we were talking about inventory management, त्यांनी मला सांगितलं की आम्ही 33% करतो. So I said, what do you mean? So he said, आमच्या 33% असतात ते नवीन असतात, 33% असतात ते मॅच्युअर्ड असतात, and 33% are going towards obsolescence. And there is a continuous cycle made like that. So the budget is, doing this continuous cycle of inducting new, having matured platforms, and the ones which are now going. Indian Air Force has come to a stage where more than 70% are through obsolescence. Matured only these Mirage 2000, maybe Jaguars or something like that. New are only Rafale, and then of course Sukhoi 30 and that. So if you're the third largest Air Force and fourth largest Air Force and whatever you want to give the name to it, you have to be able to back it with budget. And budget is not just for aircraft.
Right.
One other important aspect I want to तुमच्या podcast मध्ये सांगू इच्छितो की it is the man behind the machine. Who is going to train the new people? आता समजा जर मध्ये विमानच नसली, मला एक्सपिरियन्स नसला, आय एम अ सिनियर पायलट, आय एम अ क्वालिफाईड इन्स्ट्रक्टर, पण मला स्वतःलाच एक्सपिरियन्स नाही आहे. You require something like 300-400 hours of experience on an aircraft to make it sure that it's like another extension of body. You don't look inside to switches, you don't इकडे तिकडे बघायला तुम्हाला वेळ नसतो. It should become part of you. To have that, you require 300-400 hours on that cockpit. Now, ते जर तुमच्याकडे नसलं तर तुम्ही नेक्स्ट जनरेशनला शिकवणार कसं? तर ही जे लोकांना ह्युमन रिसोर्सचा हा जो इश्यू आहे तो कळतच नाही. उद्या समजा आम्हाला 500 नवीन विमानं तुम्ही आणून इथे लोगावरती ठेवलीत, उडवणार कोण? सो देर इज दिस सायकल विच इज रिक्वायर्ड. सो इन स्पोर्ट्स आपलं काहीतरी विकत घ्यायचं, मग परत काहीतरी सिंदूर झाल्यानंतर परत आता विल बाय समथिंग, And then meanwhile, our HAL is not able to cope up with, because whatever their constraints are, they're not getting engines maybe, because engines is something which we don't have. So we are getting G404 engine, and then we require G414 engine. We're signed pact with Americans. But, we're depending on the outside. So that is where this Atmanirbharta, will become a major issue, which is rightly so.
सो तुम्ही आता HALचं मेन्शन केलं की मध्यंतरी त्याच्यावर खूप जास्त टीका झाली, म्हणजे की त्यांच्या डिलेज त्यांच्याकडनं होत आहेत त्याच्याबद्दल. तर त्याच्यावर आणखीन तुम्ही काही इलॅबोरेट करू शकाल का?
नाही, डिलेज म्हणलं कसं ना, त्यांचे जे इट्स अन एक्सलंट एअरक्राफ्ट ACA इन्सिडेंटली वंडरफुल प्लॅटफॉर्म. आणि अगेन दॅर इज अ बिट ऑफ अ हिस्ट्री राईट वेर आय स्टे इन near Kamlanur Park. There is a HF-24 pocket. I mean, one of the old aircraft I had got, it is there. Motivation साठी. HF-24 Hindustan Fighter 24 was one of the first aircraft designed in India, and we were going to fly it as early as 54 it started. Okay. There was a person called Kurt Tank from Germany who helped us. And we made later 100 aircraft, but we never had an engine. It was between Nehru-Nasser friendship of Egypt and India that Egypt was to make an engine, we were to make airframe. So we made the airframe. It's a strong airframe. It's a very heavy airframe. Because those days these new, materials were not available. But it's a strong airframe and engine was not built. So आपण जुगाड केला. आपण जे नॅट विमान होतं त्याचं जे ऑर्फियस इंजिन होतं ती 2 इंजिन लावली त्याला. But even then it was underpowered. Okay. So we had 100 aircraft. We took part in 71 war. We had one Apte from here, Pune, who died in that aircraft, I remember. But they did good job in 71. It was a very good, like an arrow it is, and carried enough weapons. But then, as I said, because it was underpowered, we had to find a replacement. So it was over a period phased out. So we started actually then. If we had that time continued with designing more aircraft, and then we took hiatus, we took break. No, nothing was designed. I used to hear about HS-78 in between. I saw even a wooden model at one time in Bangalore, but it never really fructified. And then LCA came up. Now these designers, you see what happens, if I'm a designer, I want to see something happening.
Right.
So people now were starting to poach all their youngsters, the various countries poached all their designers and things like that. So finally, Kota Harinarayan, before that Mr. Sheshadri, they came up with this LCA design, which is a wonderful aircraft. And then Air Force, we had Air Marshal Rajkumar was, a test pilot who was part of this team, and they finally made that aircraft, all control laws. It's really very good. It was supposed to replace MiG-21. So you can imagine, they talked about MiG-21. MiG-21 could have been replaced if the LCA had come up at the time when it was actually supposed to, which was 20 plus years back. Then we would not have had. But so we kept now every time modifying. It has now got air-to-air refueling also. It has got new weapons also. Astra, which is our Indian weapon, is there. And it is now a good platform, light combat aircraft. It is not one of those which can, but it took part in Sindoor. It took part in what is called the Operational Readiness Platform, or CAP, what we call, for air defense. If somebody is trying to attack airfields, it would take that on. So it was a role of air defense, which they did. And there is a report that, one of the LCAs even painted the radar onto a Chinese JF-17 of Pakistan, and that aircraft ran away, I would call it, because. But that apart, LCA's engine hai. Kaveri was our engine which DRDO was making. That has not happened. The Kaveri is a वर्ष त्याला आम्ही hot end म्हणतो. It's afterburner लागतं. त्याचं जे material आहे, we are short of that material. We don't have that material. And no foreigner would like to give you that material, because for them that's business.
Yes.
And that is how we have flown this, engine on a platform. But the Russians have a platform where we have their own 4-engine aircraft is flying, but there is also a test bed engine is called the test. So that is, we have done all the trials, everything, just that last bit which we require. And the LCA actually was designed around that Kaveri engine. Then we had to find some replacement. So the G404 engine that came up. But now 404 has stopped. So now we are looking at 414.
Right.
So LCA Mark II will have 414. But again, depending on Americans and how, it is all to do with international relationship.
Yes.
It is to do with sometimes sanctions. We have faced every kind of problems earlier. Hopefully, we will find our way. I think there has been an announcement, if I'm not mistaken, right at the highest level, that anybody who designs an engine,
Yes.
not only the country will support, but will give an award of some huge amount, kind of a thing.
That's great.
So we need to have our own engine. Once we have our engine, tank engines are not there. Car engines. Other than the Maruti, we don't have engines.
Yes.
The Tata has made their engine. Maruti doesn't have the engine. Maruti Suzuki makes it. So there are Indian technology is something that we lack. We have to put our head and mind together. The youngsters must through this get motivated to do that. They'll I'm sure we'll find a way out.
येस. सर आत्ता अनफॉर्च्युनेटली एअर इंडियाचं प्लेन क्रॅश झालं होतं अहमदाबादमध्ये आणि 2010 साली मंगलोरमध्ये पण एक प्लेन क्रॅश झालं होतं आणि त्याच्यानंतर जी त्याची चौकशी समिती स्थापन केली त्याचे तुम्ही हेड होतात 2010मध्ये मँगलोरच्या ह्याच्यामध्ये. सो आत्ताचा जो एअर इंडियाचा क्रॅश झाला आहे त्याच्यावर पण वेगवेगळे न्यूजमध्ये आत्ता अजून त्याचं कम्प्लिटली अहवाल त्याचा येणं बाकी आहे. ती कमिटी अजूनही काम करते आहे. पण तरीसुद्धा न्यूजमध्ये बऱ्यापैकी वेगवेगळे व्हर्जन येत आहेत की कुठे सुसाईड अटॅक होता किंवा काही म्हणजे फ्युएल कट डाऊन केलं आणि काय.
It is very sad. I have faced that. I was the judge, as you mentioned it, chairman of that inquiry. And a lot of media thing was going on. So I had decided that in between I'll purposely have a media interaction, and coming from the chairman himself and my colleagues who are my members, there would be less misinformation because people are always ready to give expertise. We may have 1.4 billion opinions fall, everybody is an expert. But in this case also similar thing has happened. That video has been shown so many times on the television. People have talked about all kinds of things. I have purposely avoided to be on the media only because I feel that let the Coda inquiry do their job. There are a lot of now things are available. What we had recommended luckily has happened. We had set up AIB. You see, most of the advanced countries, and especially now that India is supposed to be going into the third largest civil aviation sector. They are supposed to be, going to be buying so many aircraft and, going to be busy in Tavela. We should have our AIB. So it has been formed. We have been able to get our own lab to have the, what you call as the, त्याचे दोन्ही रेकॉर्डर असतात ते दोन्ही we can read in India. That has also happened. Earlier there was a news की ते अमेरिकेला पाठवणार आहेत, but luckily it has now been decoded here. Recently, a pilot from 787 has been inducted into the inquiry. Actually, that is something which I am surprised why it is done so late. Because my inquiry, immediately we had a pilot who was from 737s, because that was a 737 aircraft from Air India Express. We had technical officer from Go Air. There was and different airlines, experts were there. The only person missing was doctor, so I got a doctor member because in the Air Force, if there is a fatal accident, you have to have a medical representative because you have to. So all this suicide and all this business which is going on, I hope there is a doctor member. That member list is not really out in the public, but they should give that because there's nothing wrong in giving it. They said initially it will be Home Secretary who will do it. You have to have domain experts also. I mean, he can be a chairman, but so this Air India that was also pilot तिथे 787 चाला है. I'm sure he'll throw more light to it. Because you see these aircraft these days are so modern. There is and I don't want to get into technicalities, but there is something called FADEC.
Okay.
And this switches on off. What I frankly didn't like was that cryptic kind of initial report which has come out, which doesn't throw a light. Actually, it doesn't satisfy the public, and it actually is increasing the number of misconceptions.
Yes.
So they could have avoided giving any report at all, and they could have said wait till our final. There was no requirement. In my case, we never gave a report of any. There was nothing like a report within 15 days or something.
Initial report or something like that.
We were told to do it in 3 months, and I did it in 3 months. There was that also was there. There was this expert who was still talking, even in this inquiry is talking. So he said, you will watch, this inquiry will take 1 year, that kind of a thing. I had said I'll work day, night, but I'll finish in 3 months. That's the time they'd given. Because, one had to go in our case in Mangalore, that fire, because 158 people died in the aircraft crash. There was a fire and the recorder had burned to the core.
Yes.
And we didn't have the facility. आपल्याकडे जी DGCM दिलेली जी आहे आता नवीन झाली आहे पण त्यावेळेला नव्हती. So we had to take this particular across to Washington, rebuild the whole thing. We read it आणि cockpit voice recorder as well as DFDR, ज्याला ब्लॅक बॉक्स म्हणतात. ॲक्च्युली ऑरेंज कलरची असते ती पण ब्लॅक बॉक्स. सो ऑल दॅट वॉज रेड अँड देन it will become clear what exactly has happened. And it gave QED म्हणतो ना म्हणजे की त्यामुळे सगळं ते इक्वेशन काय झालं एक्झॅक्टली ते कळलं. तर त्याच्यासाठी असं इंटेरियम रिपोर्ट देऊन हे कन्फ्युजन झालं आहे की ते पायलट सेट धिस, अदर पायलट सेट धिस. नाव दॅट ॲड्स टू कन्फ्युजन वेदर द स्विचेस आर मॅन्युअली डन ऑर नॉट. बिकॉज ह्या विमानांमध्ये इतक्या ऑटोमेशन्स आहेत आता की लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स आर डन ऑटोमॅटिकली. आता इनिशियली तर लोक वाटेल ते बोलत होते पण ते जेव्हा त्यांनी ते फोटोग्राफ नीट बघितलं की तो ऑक्झिलरी जो आहे असे बाहेर आलेलो आहे ते त्यांनी इंजिन लवकर फेल झालं आहे. सो देर इज दिस स्पेक्युलेशन विच हॅव हॅपन. आय रिअली विश इट इज अनफॉर्च्युनेट बिकॉज इट इज नॉट फॉर द पायलट कम्युनिटी. पायलट कम्युनिटी इज व्हेरी अँटी दिस. द अदर पायलट्स हू आर देअर, they are, I mean, since I'm on many groups, etc., they feel ki, what is the requirement to say something abruptly like that? Because then you are, as a passenger, you're always wondering whether, the person who's sitting in the front is going to be doing correct thing or not. That should not be the case. You should have full confidence. So this abrupt असं जे काय ते आलंय बाहेर, which in my opinion was not good.
तर तुमच्या पूर्ण करिअरमध्ये तुम्ही बऱ्याच वेगवेगळ्या ऑपरेशन्समध्ये इन्व्हॉल्व होतात. म्हणजे 71चं झालं, त्याच्यानंतर ऑपरेशन सफेदसागर झालं. तर ऑपरेशन जर 1971बद्दलचं बोलायचं झालं तर तुम्ही दोन्ही फ्रंटवर तुम्ही खूप सक्सेसफुली खूप छान एक्झिक्यूट केलं ते ऑपरेशन. म्हणजे आत्ताचं जे बांगलादेश आहे तेव्हाचं वेस्ट पाकिस्तान आणि आत्ताचं वेस्ट पाकिस्तान दोन्ही ठिकाणी तुम्ही होतात. तर त्या ऑपरेशनबद्दल तुम्ही काही इन्साईट्स आम्हाला देऊ शकाल का?
One good thing that happens, I'm sure every person looks forward to taking part in an operation, doing something for the country. Luckily, my elder brother who was in the army, he was with Mukti Bahini, training them those days. And of course, आम्ही काय दोघांना त्यावेळेला काय मीडिया वगैरे म्हणजे लेटर्स ना व्हॉट्सॲप काहीच नव्हतं. आई वडील पुण्यात होते त्यामुळे त्यांनाही काही माहिती नाही. पण ही वॉज देअर इन नियर समेत मिसामारी देशपूर अँड देन एंटर्ड Bangladesh. I was in a very important airbase called Bagdogra, which is near Siliguri. Now, as you know, it's the same corridor which joins all the Seven Sisters, and it's just north of then East Pakistan, south of then Sikkim. Sikkim was independent. Bhutan on the east, Nepal on the west. So it is right at the confluence of all this entire thing, and that 40-kilometer width where you come join up with all the rest of the Seven Sisters, as they are called. So it was a very important airways, and I was very fortunate to take part. I was in 7th Squadron those days in Hunter aircraft, and very happy that I never went on leave and did my syllabus quickly. Ideas to be ready. I was a very junior most, I would call it, and then we were sent to even Nathula just in case Chinese did something. What should we be doing? I don't know all that. So it's there in my book incident. This book which is lying here. But I was in the very first formation. Our CO, Wing Commander Coelho, he was leading and I was number 4. So there was first formation to lead. Normally that's the way the CO leads. So he had told us to sleep in the squadron itself and take briefing early morning because, the briefing that time was I think 3 o'clock. Army GLO would give us, thereafter there would be med briefing, there would be other intelligence briefing, etc. And then take off. So there's a place called Hilli, if in Bangladesh, Northla. So in that sector, we were to do introduction, sorties, railway station, junction, we were there. आणि तिथले जे ऑइल डेपो होतं त्याला पण आम्ही अटॅक करायचं होतं. सो आम्ही ते सगळं केलं आणि जेव्हा परत आलो आमची 4ही विमानं त्यावेळेला आमचे CEO इतके चिडले होते आमच्यावरती का तर त्यांच्या विमानाला पण आमच्या विमानाला पण खालून भोकं होती. सो ही सर आपण सगळेजण काय होतं वेन यू प्रॅक्टिसिंग और डुईंग इट ऑन रेंज तर रेंजवरती रेंज प्लो केलेली असते सॉफ्ट सँड विंड असते त्यामुळे तिथं जसं रिकोशी त्याला म्हणतात मी ते उडून असं ते येत नाही नॉर्मली तर तुम्ही फार लो गेलात तर होतं पण इथे खूप विंगच्या खाली भोकं होती प्रत्येकाच्या त्यांच्यासुद्धा त्यावेळी आपण सगळेजण कारण तिथे परसेप्शन काही नसतं असं तिथे काही टार्गेट असतं हे माहिती असतं पण किती तुम्ही जवळ गेला का किती लांब गेलात माहिती नाही त्यामुळे तो सर आपण वी ऑल आर गोईंग व्हेरी लो पण त्यातला जो माझा नंबर 3 होता फिगरेडो म्हणून नो मोर पण फिगरेडो त्याचं तर ते त्याची जे खालून लागली होती गोळी दॅट वॉज केम ऑलमोस्ट विथ इजेक्शन सीट So, he later on used to have it in his keychain and used to roam around and saying, my third life, kind of second life. But it was a great experience that we were all 4 of us back live. They, of course, patch repaired everything. But again, intelligence failure. We never knew that the Chinese gun was being used by them. It was a Chinese gun which had a rapid fire like that, 600 rounds a minute, almost that kind of a rate. So, we 4 came back. The other formation of 4, 2 came back. And 2 aircraft, they never came in a way. And then suddenly one aircraft came and it was my instructor who had taught me actually initial flying. He had been attached to a squad named Gupta Maran. So he came and त्यांनी इजेक्ट केलं ओव्हर इट कारण त्यांच्या विमानाला गोळ्या लागल्या होत्या आणि हायड्रॉलिक फेलियर झालं होतं. सो ही सर्वाइव्ड. पण वन विमान नेवर केम बॅक अँड देन लेटर वी केम टू नो दॅट Flight Lieutenant De Costa, he died with that. So that's when, the Air Force has a different perception of war because, we don't see like army, the blood and gore directly. Yes. We lose aircraft and suddenly our colleague is no more now, so it was a sad part. But Sandra, his wife, and that is naturally, it's a sad thing. But then our role in the East as a Air Force was चटकन संपला कारण आपण त्यांना सगळीकडनं सराउंड केलं होतं आणि पाकिस्तान एअरफोर्स वॉज व्हेरी वीक देअर इन दॅट एरिया कारण आपण त्यांची मिड फ्लाईट्स बंद केल्या होत्या वॉट एव्हर दे कुड गो थ्रू श्रीलंका बट वॉज टू फार सो त्यांचं तिकडे एअरफोर्स वॉज वीक सो दे टोल्ड अस टू शिफ्ट टू द वेस्ट जिकडे जास्त ॲक्शन होती सो दे वी वेंट टू वेस्ट बिकानेर and the very first sortie our wing commander Koilo was CO he again took off but he became the senior-most prisoner of war. He is no more. He retired as a AVM and died he was in Noida. But he became the senior-most prisoner of war. So like that, the war continued. They were finally in Pathankot. And I remember Pathankot when finally the ceasefire took place. Since that was the area which was focus. Again, every time, Kashmirla cut off karण्यासाठी Pakistan tries all that area which is, there, that road which goes further. Yes. So I remember then General and then Field Marshal Manek Shah had come and सगळ्यांनी आम्ही we had coffee, tea, whatever it is in that typical NML mug Southern Army. Yes. It was nice meeting. Not that I met him individually as such, it was a big crowd but it was good that I could take part in war. And after maybe another 4-5 months, I met my brother. Came home also that sometime in June. So it was a experience of life in a way to be able to take part, understand what is colleague dying in this, what is prisoner of war. You suddenly become mature. Yes. You're a youngster, but you're still a kid kind of a thing. That you mature yourself, So that had helped me over a period of time to grow in the Air Force, to grow, understand responsibility, because that's the way the Air Force works. Yes. And armed forces work. Yes. The baton is passed on. And there can be courses. We have a lot of courses, instructional courses, etc. But finally it is, you learn on the job. Yeah. How is my senior doing? Has he made any mistakes? Or you think if I was in his place, what would I do? And that's the way you grow.
सर मनोहर पर्रिकरांबरोबर तुमचा खूप जवळचा संबंध आला आहे आणि त्यांची ना एक खूप अशी वेगळी इमेज प्रत्येक पॉलिटिकल पार्टीमध्ये होते. तर तुम्ही खूप जवळून त्यांच्याबरोबर काम केलं आहे वेगवेगळ्या प्रोजेक्ट्सवर. तर तेव्हाचा तुमचा अनुभव कसा होता?
आपण आत्मनिर्भरताबद्दल बोललो.
येस.
तो काय झालं होतं, आम्हाला ॲव्हरो म्हणून जे विमान आमचं आहे इज नॉन इट्स ऑल्सो गोइंग टू बी फेज्ड आउट. बट that aircraft needed to be replaced. Again, most of our aircraft are vintage, actually. 50 plus years, but Avro must be a 70-year-old. So, because it's there since I joined Air Force. I joined Air Force in 68, Avro was there. So, it needed replacement. So, we had floated a worldwide tender as its process. And that time, 7 companies had entered because they had to have an Indian partner.
Okay.
So they had chosen their own partners, etc., including Americans and everybody, Russians. At that time, Ukraine was by itself, so Ukraine also. They were all those, but then finally in our technical evaluation, other than one company, all other projects were sort of relegated. They were not ते बरोबर नव्हते सगळे. त्यांनी जे काय उत्तरं पाठवली होती हे होतं ते होतं आणि डेमॉन्स्ट्रेशन पण करतात ते. बट दॅट वॉज नॉट वॉट वी वॉन्टेड. सो फायनली एकाचा चॉईस राहिला होता. सो नाव ॲज पर आवर डिफेन्स प्रोक्युरमेंट प्रोसिजर यू हॅव टू हॅव ॲटलीस्ट 2 कॉम्पिटिटर्स सो दॅट यू कॅन हॅव प्राईस निगोसिएशन. वेन ओनली वन हॅपन्ड, the defense minister wanted to take a decision, but he wanted to strengthen his own opinion by some experts who would say, okay, this is allowed, not allowed, whatever it is. Otherwise, we would have to refloat once again the process. And you know how the process, it's a bureaucratic process. It takes 4 years before a new aircraft can end up and then come. So it is almost, I would say, 7, 8 years. So he rang me up. I was here, retired, but I was in the government still, even after retirement, I worked for 14 odd years in the government. So he said, can you come tomorrow? So I came, and then he expressed this problem. So I had luckily, we were 3-member committee, I was the chairman. Kota Harinaran, who designed our LCA, was a member. And since Parikar sir was from IIT Mumbai, from aerospace department, there was one Mr. Chaji, who was also a member. So 3 of us, we went into all kinds of details of legal issues, technical issues, and then finally we did realize that there is no other option but to accept this particular offer, which is Airbus Tata. So Airbus Tata C275, which is 295, sorry, is the aircraft which finally had to be accepted. And we gave recommendation. We also recommended that time that, you see, Avro doesn't have a ramp, what is called ramp, because the army would much rather have their jeeps or tanks, whatever is loaded from road directly into that. But like what happens in C130 or N32 or N12, but here it was straight like that. So we even said that this aircraft has a ramp, but it can also be made up like this and change to civil formation, like आपण जेव्हा ATR विकत घेतो, कॅनडाकडनं घेतो, स्मॉल सेक्टर्स जे आपले असतात, पुणे, हैदराबाद वगैरे, विल फाइंड दोज aircraft flying. We can even replace that as we over a period, and Tata is capable. Actually, I remember mentioning that Tata, of course, at the moment is getting a bad name because of Air India, but otherwise, Tata, they did that to Mercedes. Mercedes-Benz with German collaboration, but now there are Tata trucks and Tata buses. So I said they are capable of maybe redesigning as we go ahead. So finally that was accepted, and I'm happy that Baroda, there is a plant which Tata has put up and aircraft are flying. Actually, now slowly they'll start inducting and they'll have a big market. Navy has placed order also. And not only that, our N32s, what are called, they're going to get phased out. We used to have support from actually Ukraine, but over a period now they're also will phase out. Not may not be tomorrow, day after, but as they phase out. So there'll be and as the Air Force money, we have been through this problem, and maybe Army has also been through that problem of logistics management. You see, when you are different countries, different procurement places, etc., to manage that logistics, to get the spares, to get this, that, etc. So actually nothing like made in India. Then you can rely on our own manufacturers. ते spares देऊ शकतील. पण नाहीतर तुम्ही sparesची ऑर्डर द्यायची, मग त्यांनी मॅन्युफॅक्चर करायचे, दरवेळेला negotiations. It's a long process. So that way this would become a good thing that will happen. And I think that's the steps we are taking towards Atmanirbharta. So that was one issue that I really came in close contact. I also came in contact when he felicitated me for Akash missile, because Akash, when it was to be inducted, there was Dr. Prahlad, who was from DRDO, and I was working. We were two-man committee kind of a thing to make sure that Akash is inducted into the armed forces. And I said, look, let's accept it with whatever, if you all the tests, by the time they take place and this, that, etc., a lot of delays happen. So I said, let's induct one squadron to start with and a second one, so that we improve as we go along. So that is what has happened today. It's a great success. It took part in Sindoor. Now we are getting the next Akash Mark II. That's the Mark I, Mark II philosophy is a good thing in production.
Yes.
You always, like most of the cars you find, they make a particular car and they improve upon it. That's the next mark, kind of a thing where sedan, then they have to make it into a SUV or whatever. So again, that was another place where we interacted. But it was a fine person, absolutely. Actually, my other experience was here in Pune.
Achha.
When he came to our, I'm the Adhyaksha of Maharashtra Society, and we have a Sainik school only for girls. Rani Lakshubai. There's 650 मुली आहेत. And smart girls, they all shoot horse riding करतात. त्याच्याजवळ 15-16 जणी आता ह्याच्यामध्ये आहेत सर्व्हिसेसमध्ये. आणि पहिली एनडीएची बॅच जी मुलींची होती, त्याची जी इंचार्ज होती ती आमच्या शाळेची विद्यार्थी. शी इज अ विंग कमांडर. आय थिंक शी वॉज इन उधमपूर लास्ट. शी वॉज इन एनडीए बट देन उधमपूर. I've lost track. So that time he came and these girls gave us smart, guard of honor. So he was very impressed. So he was asking me, so what happens after this? What do they do? So the school is till the 12th. Right. So we said, look, after that they go to their homes and the people sort of tell them to get married or, so they want to actually join armed forces, but there is no provision. They have to wait till they become degree holders, join NCC maybe. So he said, but there is no NDA. I said, no, I'm from NDA, so NDA is only for boys. I don't know whether there was some connection, but now India has opened out and the girls are doing really well. The first batch have passed out. So in a way, I think he was a visionary leader and could take a decision, and that is most important. In these kind of areas of particularly armed forces, where you got to be taking quick decisions, because that decision after taking also takes a long time for gestation. From the time he said okay for that C1295 Tata project, it has taken 5 years. The factories don't come up overnight. They take time, the jigs have to come, and things like that. So anyway.
सर, ऑपरेशन सिंदूर हे एकमेव असं ऑपरेशन होतं ज्या वेळेला आपल्याकडे CDS हे एक पद होतं. याच्या आधी बालाकोटच्या वेळेला किंवा एअर स्ट्राईकच्या हे काय म्हणतात सर्जिकल स्ट्राईकच्या वेळेला ते पद नव्हतं. सो CDS आल्यामुळे तिन्ही दलांच्या कम्युनिकेशनमध्ये किंवा कमांडमध्ये खूप कोऑर्डिनेशन सोपं झालं का? म्हणजे पटकन डिसिजन घेता आले का?
There is no doubt that integration has become much better. आणि मला वाटतं की मी माशी सुरुवातीला जसं म्हणलं तसं नॉट जस्ट पोस्ट ऑर what is important is also the cooperation, collaboration must come from within, from the mind itself. The air chief, the naval chief, the army chief must also get that kind of a feeling that we must go to a common aim. After all, everybody's aim is to make sure that India does well. Right. So, and that India wins the war. So there are no different aims. It's just that the various approaches to it whether we should first use Air Force, whether we should first, send a paratroopers, or what do we want, whatever you want, options are. So there are a number of options. So that is where the integration happens. So that way the series helps to make sure that different options are put on the table. And of course, as you know, in a democracy, it's not easy to just take a decision. Decisions are taken at a different level. And because there are lots of risks involved, there are lots of, and you can see the intense debate that is going on in Parliament at the moment. So there is a responsibility. So I have a feeling that having a CDS, having a coordinated approach, integrated approach is important.
सर 1975 मध्ये ज्यावेळेला तुम्ही इन्स्ट्रक्टर होतात त्यावेळेला एका सॉर्टीमध्ये तुमचं प्लेन क्रॅश लँड झालेलं हे तुम्ही तुमच्या पुस्तकामध्ये पण मेन्शन केलेलं आहे सर. तर त्यावेळेला नक्की काय झालं होतं म्हणजे तो कारण तुम्ही खूपच तो थरारक सगळा इन्सिडेंट आहे.
That happened during flying instructor school. You become an instructor and you teach cadets in Air Force Academy or wherever, and then the pupil goes solo, so he becomes a pilot, etc. Like Arup Rahao became chief, or Dhanova, they were my pupils, at one time. They were youngsters. So that's the way they grow later. But to be an instructor, you have to go to what is called flying instructor school. That is in Tamram,
अच्छा.
near Madras. So when, for whatever reason, I had very early starts in my career, so I was just young flying officer when I became an instructor and a flying instructor, the instructor. And it so happened that some of my own colleagues, course-mates, or even some seniors were becoming now my pupils. Now that's a little odd at times, because what happens is, that there is a seniority gap which is normally kept in a cockpit when you're sitting side by side. You can't have colleagues sitting, who has seen you together, we have cracked jokes together, we've had parties together, and all that kind of thing. So that's even this happens in civil, where it's called the slope between the commander and the co-pilot kind of a thing. But notwithstanding that, this particular gentleman was my course-mate. And as I said, mistake is mine, because finally the instructor must take over the control. Just, when he feels that now things are getting out of control and that he's not able to cope up, because that's what you are there for. But at the same time, you don't keep taking over control, because he'll never learn.
Yes.
So it's a very दुहेरी अशी ती तलवार असते अशी की उशीर झाला तर ॲक्सिडेंट नाही झाला तर तो कधी शिकणारच नाही. This particular one, we were doing a formation in which the lead aircraft did something which was not part of the briefing actually. He went too low in speed where I don't want to get into the aerodynamics of it, but they say our aircraft got too close and then he suddenly now tried to recover. So that's the time when we had a kind of a mid-air. And when that mid-air took place, our aircraft went out of control. And control got jammed, engine got flamed out. It was a Kiran aircraft. So we somehow came out of it. We looked at each other and now we said, let's eject. But the Kiran aircraft, the canopy is adhi eject kara lagte, so that it won't go. So he said, now what to do? So that's the time I saw this lake just short of Tamram. And the water normally takes good braking, takes a lot. So it's not that it was, I mean, quite intentionally like that, but out of the all possible options of crash landing on a ground and hoping like hell that you will survive, there was a better chance to land in the lake. That lake was artificially made because of rains. So we landed in that, and luckily, the braking happened fast. Just at the end, the lake the pond I would call it, not even call it lake, but pond must have been a dagad किंवा मोठा काहीतरी असं तर तो त्यात लागला त्या विमानाला आणि खालून असं जिथे आमची रडर असतात तिथे भोक लागलं आणि तिथून पाणी येत होतं आतमध्ये आणि कत्रे सेड तो असं काय झालं. He doesn't speak Marathi that well, but what happened? So he said, I think I hurt my leg. But that water was coming in, so we were wondering, now we're going to drown now after all that. सो तिथे एक ॲक्स असतो जस्ट टू ब्रेक द कॅनपी. सो वी ट्राईड दॅट, नथिंग हॅपन. सो दॅट होल I said, Katre, can we get out of it? He said, let's try. So I don't think we can once again get out of it. That time we got out of it. And he was, of course, holding on. मी त्याला ते आम्हाला जे शिकवतात पाठीवर सगळ्याचं जो आहे टू केम, तिथे काही बायका होत्या दगड तोडत होत्या, त्या तर रडायलाच लागल्या. आणि म्हणलं तुम्ही काय तिथे ट्रक होती ना, त्या ट्रक ड्रायव्हरला म्हणलं आम्हाला जरा तामरमला घेऊन चल. पण ट्रक ड्रायव्हर आफ्टर ऑल ही वेटेड फॉर ऑल द त्याची ट्रक लोड झाली. मग जेव्हा तो परत यायला लागला तोपर्यंत पण वी कुड सी सम अकाउंट ऑपरेटिंग ऑन टॉप. त्यामुळे एक ॲम्ब्युलन्स येत होती. सो ॲम्ब्युलन्समध्ये मी थांबवलो आणि कत्रेला सांगितलं त्या ड्रायव्हरला म्हणलं यांना हॉस्पिटलला घेऊन जा म्हणून, बिकॉज ही हॅड ॲपरंटली ब्रोकन हिज अँकल. लकीली फॉर मी मला थोडेसे स्क्रॅचेस झाले होते, बाकी काही नव्हतं. अँड माय वाईफ वॉज प्रेग्नेंट. सो I went to the squadron and I said that nobody will go home, nobody will tell anything to my wife, I'll tell myself. Because she was pregnant and I didn't want a shock, kind of a thing. So that's the story.
सर 81मध्ये ऑपरेशन मेघदूत झालं आणि 84मध्ये ऑपरेशन राजीव कंडक्ट करण्यात आलं. या दोन्ही ऑपरेशन्सबद्दल खूप कमी लोकांना माहिती आहे. तर हे दोन्ही ऑपरेशन्स काय होते आणि कशासाठी हे कंडक्ट केले गेले?
मला वाटतं थोड्या दिवसापूर्वीच एक न्यूज आली अबाउट वन ऑफ आर व्हेरी फेमस माउंटेनियर. त्यांना बुल थॉपर म्हणायचे. सो त्यांना एक अमेरिकन मॅप दाखवला त्यांनी एकाने. ते माउंटेनियरच होते आणि त्यांनी बुल कुमार म्हणजे त्यांचं नाव. बुल त्यांचं लाईक आय एम कॉल्ड बिंगो. सो ही इज व्हेरी टफ पर्सन. आय मेट हिम हिअर बट ही इज नो मोर आय थिंक. तर त्यांना मॅप दाखवला आणि त्यांना ते आश्चर्य वाटलं की ही जे सियाचीनवरील जी एरिया आहे दॅट इज बिंग शोन बाय द पाकिस्तानी साईड. जसे आपल्या जेव्हा काश्मीर रेकॉर्ड म्हणजे काश्मीर रेकॉर्ड म्हणण्यापेक्षा आपला जेव्हा सिमला अकॉर्ड झाला त्यावेळेला ॲक्च्युली स्पीकिंग आपण जी लाईन अशी एनजे जाते पुढे वरती ती आपण फर्म त्यावेळेला केली नाही. त्यामुळे त्याच्यानंतर ते असं वेग राहिलं की आपली काय एक्झॅक्टली लाईन ऑफ कंट्रोल, लाईन ऑफ ॲक्च्युअल कंट्रोल अशा बऱ्याच तिथे आहेत. नाही ते तुम्हाला बिटवीन आर टू कंट्रीज देर इज इंटरनॅशनल बॉर्डर, देर इज LOC अँड देर इज लाईन ऑफ ॲक्च्युअल कंट्रोल. सो इथे काय आहे ते अजून लोकांना नीट माहिती नाही आहे त्याच्यामध्ये. तर त्या वेळेला जेव्हा ते सगळे बर्फाळ प्रदेश आहे लडाखमध्ये, त्यामुळे जेव्हा माउंटेनर बेसिकली जायचे कारण तिकडे K2 आहे म्हणजे कांचनजंगा 2 तिकडे आहे, ते पाकिस्तान साईडला आहे. सो तिथे जेव्हा ते गिर्यारोहणासाठी जायचे तर त्यावेळेला पाकिस्तानी यूज टू अकंपनी दॅम. इट्स नॉर्मली देर इज that one of the local people would accompany. So say Indian Army mountaineers would accompany. So when Bull Kumar came to know this, he went to government and said, hey, this is now Pakistan is occupying this, looks like. So that's when government decided that we have to take action. So it is thanks to the Air Force, and there is a Sanjay Kulkarni, luckily. I am not sure it is what regiment it is, but he's now Lieutenant General retired in Noida. There's another Kulkarni who was his boss. He's also here in Puri. And they dropped by a helicopter at this particular place and Siachen, because Siachen, as you know, is सगळं त्याला बर्फाळ तर आहेतच पण तिथे हिमनद्या आहेत, ग्लेशियर्स आहेत. तर तिथे ते ड्रॉप्ड अँड देयर वॉज अ हँड टू हँड फाईट ॲट दॅट रेअर ॲटमॉस्फिअर, कोल्ड, विंड. पण त्याने तिथे केलं आणि त्याच्यानंतर आपण कंटिन्युअसली आर्मीचे ट्रूप्सना पाठवत गेलो. बिकेम व्हेरी डिफिकल्ट कारण त्यांना ॲक्लमटाईज व्हायला लागतं. बिकॉज आय एम शुअर यू हॅव बीन टू ले ऑर समथिंग, बट यू सी इवन इफ यू done by stages so that you can be without oxygen at certain places, and there are places as high as 23,000 feet and cold. So once we understood the importance of Siachen, because it's very strategic, आणि आज तर त्याचं खूपच महत्त्व आहे. त्याचं कारण असं की जो चायना पाकिस्तान इकॉनॉमिक कॉरिडॉर आहे तो जातो, तर वी कॅन ओव्हरलुक दॅट फ्रॉम Siachen. And that is why Siachen has become even more important. And Siachen has helped us because आपण जेव्हा ट्रूप्स सारखे तिथे बदलतो 6 महिन्याने बदलतात, रेजिमेंट्स बदलतात वगैरे, त्यांना त्या थंडीचा आणि त्याचा सगळ्याचा अनुभव आला. त्यामुळे जेव्हा आपलं चायनाबरोबर 3 इयर्स स्टँड ऑफ झालं ते इट वॉज ऑल इन लडाख एरिया, त्यावेळेला त्यांना ती थंडीची मग त्याच्यासाठी मग वी कुड री-equip the army well. We could have our rations and logistics and everything, that kind of a thing. Even the Air Force has learned a lot to how to operate in those areas. Otherwise, during Kargil, actually speaking, Air Force learned a lot of lessons to how to fight the higher altitudes. You see, we always looked at plains of Punjab or maybe Gujarat, Rajasthan. Nobody looked at heights. So we actually in Kargil learned, and then we had to use Mirages. So today, most of our aircraft can go up to those heights and have accurate weapon delivery. So coming back to Siachen, I remember I was we had just inducted the MiG-23s. I had gone to Russia for training. आणि मी MiG-23 हलवारामध्ये आणलं 221 स्क्वॉड्रन. Actually, I have a fond affection of 221 squadron because it all the ranks I've served in 221. It was here in Vampires I took part. Then in Bareilly it was 221 where I was in Sukhoi 7. Then I went to Russia. I was a flight lieutenant, I was squad leader. Then I commanded as wing commander. Then of course you don't serve in a command. That's the last command, wing commander. And then when I became Commodore Commander, what is called, when I was Air Marshal, Vice Chief, that's the time once again I became Commodore Commander 221 Squadron. So there is a kind of a connection. But coming back to the Siachen, so we from Halwara could give air cover. So we used to land in Leh if required something, but we didn't require to. Our range was very good. This aircraft, is a swing wing aircraft, MiG-23. So it gives tremendous range. Actually, we used to take off from Ozar, go to Halwara and still have enough fuel, kind of a thing. Though if you are at sweep 72, there is like an arrow, very fast. It's Mach 2.3, it can go. So we used to use that aircraft and be making sure that from the other side there is no problem. Pakistan Air Force never interfered really, but we wanted to make sure that our army is safe, even weathers. And the helicopter support has to be a lot. So Indian Air Force was helping a lot in helicopters. And I think one of the, maybe I mentioned in my book also, is that one of the things that I was very fortunate to take part was when our base camp was shelled by Pakistani artillery. आपला त्यावेळेला ती शोक रिव्हर जी आहे तिथे त्याच्यात उजवीकडे होता. अँड इट वॉज नॉट इन द हिल शॅडो एरिया, त्यामुळे इट गॉट एक्सपोज इन इट गॉट डॅमेज्ड. सो देन me and one more colleague of mine, I was commanding that time, the 221 squadron, we went and did photography across the border, and it was a good experience in a way, and helped to locate where their artillery guns are. And now we shift केला तो base camp. So now we are totally occupying it. We have improved. ते खूप काय होतं, lot of people used to complain की अरे खूप खर्च होतो or you see sometimes you should not be looking at खर्च like that. Like इसरोवरती लोक म्हणतात अरे 300 कोटी. Look at the achievements that there are. So here again, look at the strategic issue of it. त्यामुळे तिथे आता we have got fiber optics, we have got the food has improved quite a bit. DRD has got a lab there close to Thais, which is another air base which is just across there. So there is a lot of improvement. And, of course, soldiers are still roughing it out. But then what we started in 81, 84 to now is a lot of improvement, sort of a thing. Why I'm particularly mentioning is because there has also been Pakistani एक कशी रिटून काढलीमध्येच. त्यावेळेला Kayani was the chief, Pakistan Army chief. And they had an avalanche in which 28 odd Pakistani soldiers died. So he suddenly said, look, both sides are having a lot of losses, a lot of injury, a lot of expenditure. So let's both of us come down and make that into a neutral area and have some picnic spot. So thank God. I mean, it became serious.
Yes.
I mean, there were delegations going to some third country, maybe Dubai or wherever it is. Thank God it didn't happen. Because how can you rely on these chaps?
Yes.
You can't rely on them at all. So now we are much better off, and as I said, it is overlooking the CPSC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. So that is the story of Siachen, and I think today Siachen has been open to the public. People can go to the base camp. They should go. They will understand as to how, what is the journey to go there. You go over the highest glacier when you cross from Leh to Thois, and then further to base camp.
येस. सर तुमचं फेवरेट फायटर जेट कुठलं आहे?
Good question. Actually, I took part in Hunter and War, and Hunter was certainly a beautiful aircraft, mind you. The neck, I wish Hunter had an afterburner, Then we did not have bought a Jaguar, actually. Though Jaguar is twin engine, but Hunter was a beautiful aircraft, no doubt. I really liked it. But then when I went on to MiG-23, as I said, the aircraft must become part of you.
Right.
And since MiG-23, not only we learned there in Russia, it's difficult to learn, because they are teaching you through what we call perivochik, a translator. We used to have this Russian written in that, Greek, Roman म्हणतो ना तसं की lava, prava, असं किंवा pakoda, plokha means weather is bad, अशा तऱ्हेचं because, everything is in Russian. And it was snow all over, very cold. We went in September for 3 months, but we stayed on till March because there was all the time snowing. But that aircraft was beautiful. As I said, it was made for the job. It had two versions. I was on MiG-23BN, what is called the bomber navigation, and it was a low level. It used to go like a dart. It used to go. It also had a MF version, which was a fighter interceptor version, but it was a very good aircraft. So I liked both these aircraft. But then as I became senior, I've flown all kinds of aircraft, including the Sukhoi. I've not only flown the Rafale, but otherwise I've flown most of these other aircraft, the Mirage, and all are good aircraft. They're, as the technology has improved, most of the aircraft have got now modern technology in it. So there is a lot of help. Helicopters I've flown, both Cheetah, Chetak and Mi-8. Because they used to be on my station, and one had to make sure that you are conversant with what is happening. So that way it's been a very enriching.
सर आता आपण ना पॉडकास्टच्या शेवटाकडे येत चाललो आहे, तर मला तुम्हाला एक शेवटचा आणि खूप पर्सनल प्रश्न विचारायला आवडेल. रिटायरमेंट नंतर सुद्धा सर तुम्ही खूप बिझी असता. तुम्ही बऱ्याच वेगवेगळ्या DRDO झालं, HL झालं, बऱ्याच वेगवेगळ्या गव्हर्नमेंटच्या संस्थांच्या बॉडीजवर आहात, शैक्षणिक संस्थांच्या बॉडीवर आहात आणि कंटिन्युअसली तुमचं काही ना काहीतरी काम सतत चालूच असतं. तर तुम्ही का एवढे बिझी असता एक, आणि तुम्हाला बिझी असायला म्हणजे आवडतं का? की कसं तुम्ही हे मॅनेज करताय?
मी स्वतःला खरं पाहिलं तर फॉर्च्युनेट समजतो. म्हणजे एक तर मी पुण्याचा आहे, मराठी बोलतो. मराठी बोलणारे फारसे म्हणजे असे भाषणं देणारे वगैरे कमी आहेत. आणि माइंड यू, इट इज अ स्ट्रगल इनिशियली. कारण काय होतं, मराठीत जरी शिकलो असलो तरी आपण व्याख्यान द्यायची जी भाषा असते किंवा असं बोलायचं पॉडकास्टवरती वगैरे, असं तुम्ही वायफळ बडबड करू शकत नाही. सो देयर वॉज अ टाईम व्हेन मी त्याला थोडासा वेळ लागला त्याला मला की हाऊ टू डू दिस. स्पेशली पुण्यामध्ये तर चोखंदळ आहेत सगळे. त्यामुळे इट वॉज गुड दॅट अँड आय लाईक टू स्टडी, आय लाईक टू इम्प्रूव्ह. I realize that when I'm interacting, I'm motivating people. I always speak positive. I want the next generation to always remain positive, optimistic. नेहमी एक माझ्या बोलण्याच्या शेवटी सांगत असतो की इट इज द ऑप्टिमिस्ट who designed an aircraft and pessimist a parachute. Of course both are required, but that optimism is very important. And as India is young, and they're the leaders of future, so they must remain optimistic for India, kind of a thing. So I always speak patriotically about that, and I got opportunities. I was in strategic areas. I worked with Dr. Chidambaram. I worked with DRDO. They gave me an office here, and I could, as I said, some of these Barak, which is now also being used in Sindoor, I was chairman of that committee where the Israeli and 70-80 kilometer missile, Akash, and various other things, So I've been fortunate to be associated with education as well as interacting with, because from the youngsters you learn a lot. आमच्या FIS मध्ये मोटो आहे, विद्या दानेन वर्धते. That means you teach to learn to teach. More you are teaching, you are actually learning. कारण ते इतके ऑकवर्ड क्वेश्चन कोणीतरी विचारलं तर तुम्हाला अभ्यास करायला लागतो. यू आस्क्ड मी समथिंग जस्ट नाउ, आय सेड वेट, लेट मी फाइंड आउट. सो that way I think it has been very enriching. Luckily, my wife has allowed me to work.
नाही, दॅट्स ग्रेट सर. कारण जनरली रिटायरमेंट नंतर लोकांचं असं असतं की माझं झालं सगळं करून, मी खूप बऱ्यापैकी बिझी होतो आणि आत्तापर्यंत बरंच केलं, सो आता थोडासा वेळ मी मला स्वतःला देईन आणि बस असं टाईपचं. पण इट्स गुड की तुम्ही
मी स्वतःला आय एम नॉट रनिंग 78, so I've given myself 80. As that's the time I think something will automatically start reducing. Corporate sector which I went to, but that will also stop. So maybe, if not completely, but some things I will shed, as a matter of fact, and get back to my hobbies, painting and hopefully playing bridge. Golf, of course, golf I've been going, but not that often. But let me just give you one story which happened in NDA, and what I call it a guru mantra, actually speaking. What happened was, when I was initially flying, we got what is called glider. I think that is also in the book.
Yes.
So the glider doesn't have an engine. It is pulled by a chain, jeep असते, आणि मग त्याला पर्टिक्युलर रनवेवरती स्पीड आलं की ते विमान वरती उडतं, आणि मग तुम्ही चेन ती सोडली की ते तर luckily or unluckily, I will call it unluckily, then I came down in 3.5 minutes. And my instructor, flight level Menezes, he said की तू खट्टू झालेला असशील, and I know that you will fly a lot, पण एक लक्षात ठेव, जे काही वरती जातं ते खाली येतं जमिनीवर, सो पाय जमिनीवर घट्ट ठेव. So I think, we all come from a society and we need to give back to society.
येस. थँक्यू सो मच सर. तुम्ही तुमच्या बिझी शेड्यूलमधनं तुमचा वेळ, एवढा बिझी वेळ काढून आमच्यासाठी इथपर्यंत आलात आणि इतकं सुंदर तुम्ही आम्हाला सगळं सांगितलं आणि इतकी छान आपली चर्चा झाली. थँक्यू सो मच सर.
मी तुमच्या व्ह्युअर्सना शुभेच्छा देतो. जय हिंद.
जय हिंद सर. आजचा एपिसोड ऐकल्यानंतर तुम्हाला एअरफोर्सबद्दल बऱ्यापैकी माहिती कळाली असेल असं मला नक्की वाटतं. पण त्याहूनही तुम्हाला अजून इन्फॉर्मेशन जर एअरफोर्सबद्दल हवी असेल तर सरांनी लिहिलेलं पुस्तक तुम्ही सगळ्यांनी वाचावं असं आम्हाला नक्की वाटतं. आकाशेम नावाने सरांनी त्यांची ऑटोबायोग्राफी लिहिली आहे. आजचा आमचा एपिसोड तुम्हाला कसा वाटला हे आम्हाला कमेंट्समध्ये नक्की सांगा आणि आमच्या चॅनलला लाईक आणि सबस्क्राईब करा. लवकरच भेटूयात देसीपॉडच्या पुढच्या एपिसोडमध्ये. तोपर्यंत नमस्कार.